Scott of ATHLEAN-X.com. The rear delts, the most unloved of the three heads of the delts. We just don't show them the attention that they need if we want our shoulders to look better. And not just that, if we want our shoulders to be healthier. Because as you'll see today, the rear delt plays a very important role in maintaining the proper balance of the shoulder to keep your shoulders healthy. However, it still doesn't change our mind. We still love to ignore it every opportunity we can. I'm going to show you why you don't want to. First of all, when you look at the rear delts, you can probably determine whether or not you have a weak rear delt just by looking at your own posture from the side. If your shoulders tend to round forward, I'm not saying that that's causing the shoulders to round forward, this weakness in the delt. What I'm saying is the rounded shoulder is actually causing you to have weak delts because you get an overstretched position here of the rear delt that leads to weakness over time. That imbalance is caused by tightening and shortening of the muscles on the front side of our chest here from overworking that front side. The next thing you're going to notice is you'll probably have soreness that you can touch in through the back of your shoulder here. Palpable trigger points that you can actually feel in through here, and that's actually occurring because the weakness that develops in the rear delt is replaced by artificial stability of trigger points and spasm to try to make your shoulder feel more stable because it lacks the actual strength that needs to be there in the first place. Now, what is the real function of the rear delt? There's three things that this muscle does. The first thing it does is it extends our arm back behind our body. Okay, now keep this in mind as I start to show you some of the ways you're going to want to attack this muscle. The next thing it does is it will assist in external rotation of the shoulder. And remember that external rotation could occur down here, it could occur up here, it could occur at an angle over here. All three of those are different variations and angles on it, but it's the same movement, and that is part of what the rear delt will affect. And then lastly, it does something horizontal abduction, which is when it takes our arm here from in front of our body and it moves it back behind our body. Now this is the direct opposite of horizontal adduction, which is this movement. And we certainly get a lot of this when we're pressing. We do a lot of that. We're never going to suffer from too little of that, but we always suffer from too little of this, going back in the opposite direction. So our plan of attack is going to be two-pronged. First of all, you want to hit it head on. And that means going right at the muscle as effectively as we can. It's an exercise that I like to call the W raise. And in the W raise, you can see here, I'm actually trying to create a W with my arms. So as I go back and do this reverse fly in the shape of a W with my arms, we're getting all three of those components. You can see that we're getting the extension of the arm back behind the body. You can see that we're getting the horizontal abduction of the arm back behind the body. You can also see that as my hands go back, they're trying to actually win the race between my elbows and my hands. So as I go back here, you can see that my hands are going to beat my elbows to the back. And by doing that, I'm externally rotating that muscle. Okay, so we know that we're getting all three functions. The only thing is, we're not going to be able to go really heavy here, and that could limit the amount of size gains that you get here. You're going to get a better mind-muscle connection, but the big mistake is limiting yourself to just those smaller exercises. So that's when you want to take step 2 and go to the next phase here, and that is including more heavy horizontal pulling movements. And a lot of us will fall into the trap of doing pull-ups and lat pull-downs and things that do a lot of pulling, but only here in this vertical plane. If you want to get a more complete back, and especially balanced upper back development, you're going to have to do a lot of horizontal pulling. But there's a difference in how you do them that's going to make all the difference on how your rear delts will respond. If you're going to do a horizontal pulling exercise, the angle of your elbows will make all the difference. So my 3 favorite exercises for you to start incorporating to get better rear delt development and much stronger are going to be a seated row, as I'm showing you here, a one-arm dumbbell row if you don't happen to have access to a seated rowing machine, and even a bent row done in what we call a high boy fashion to get a little bit more of the upper back. Now, why is that? Well, if you look at the anatomy here again of this muscle, you can see that we have the 3 heads here. Here's the front head, here's the middle head, and then here's the rear head back here. Okay, now, the rear head is going to want to do that. If we keep our elbow in here and we start doing extension, okay, we're limiting the amount of that horizontal abduction that we can get because we just can't really get our arm back behind us much more because it's pinned to our side. So the more we can get our arm elevated out to the side, we free ourselves up to do a lot more of that horizontal abduction. So think about what that means when you sit down at a seated row machine. You don't want to have your elbows in tight using a V handle because we're actually limiting the amount that we can actually engage the rear delt. But if you got a straight bar and you were able to go back, now I can really engage the rear delt because my elbows have been kept higher. The same thing can be done here on a one-arm dumbbell row. If I kept my elbow tucked into my side, I'm getting good lat engagement. But if I allow it to drift higher and higher and higher, now you can see that I can actually engage the back portion of my shoulder a lot better and more effectively. Maybe I have to decrease the weight a little bit, but you can obviously understand that it's going to get more of the posterior delt. And likewise, if we do a high boy row, by bringing the arms up a little bit higher, again, we're doing that same thing. We're keeping our elbows away from our sides directly, which is going to target more of the lats and get ourselves up and to allow the back side of our shoulders to do more of the work. Here's the key point and the key benefit. The fact of the matter is that you're able to overload these exercises much more than you can on those direct exercises. And why? Because there's smarter choices to do it on. If you think about it, an exercise that has a heavy involvement of the rotator cuff, like the W raise, is not going to respond well to a heavily loaded exercise. It's just not the right time for it. But an exercise like a seated row or a bent row or a one-arm dumbbell row are going to allow you to load up a lot more and, of course, eccentrically load that muscle a lot more safely to allow that growth and stimulation for growth that you're looking for. So that 1-2 combination is always important, and the selection of exercises that you make within that combination is always going to be extremely important. Guys, I hope you found this video helpful. The rear delt, do not ignore it. It really is going to help you to balance out the shoulder both aesthetically and then functionally, because it's going to keep that shoulder in the right position and help maintain a safe shoulder that will keep you in the gym training hard now and for a long time to come. If you're looking for a training program that's going to train you hard, but at the same time put the science back in strength and allow you to understand why you're doing what you're doing so you can get a lot more out of what you're doing, then head to ATHLEAN-X.com and get our ATHLEAN-X training system. In the meantime, if you found this video helpful, leave your comments and thumbs up below. I'll do my best to cover and hit the areas that you want me to hit in the future videos. All right, guys, I'll be back again here really soon. See ya.